Hello, and thanks for tuning in to this video presentation about the Bacteria Water Quality Objectives Evaluation Project. My name is Ed Hancock, and I am an environmental scientist in the planning unit at the Lahontan Water Board. I know that this project has been on the board's agenda for a while and was delayed a little more by the COVID-19 public health emergency, so I am really happy to be able to present this video to you today and to begin a conversation with you about ways we can craft an outcome for the project that reflects the needs of those who live, work, and recreate in the Lahontan region. So first off, here is a little bit about me. I know that this meeting format is new to most of us, and I wanted you to know who you are listening to. As I said, my name is Ed. I am a native to England from a city called Brighton, but I have been living in the United States in South Lake Tahoe for the last 10 years. Skiing and mountain biking brought me to the Tahoe Basin, and if any of you have ever visited Tahoe, you know that it can be a hard place to leave. I started with the Water Board about 5 years ago, and I am fortunate to be able to live in such a place as Tahoe while doing the important work of water quality protection. I possess a Master of Science degree in environmental management, and I have studied both in England and here in California. My master's thesis looked at recreational water quality and bacteria pollution, so I do have an educational background in some of the areas that we will be talking about over the course of this project. Let's take a look at the organization of the presentation. I have included the approximate times that each section begins in the video for those who would like to skip to certain sections. First, I will begin with a review of the results of the 2 recent surveys, followed by a brief overview of the Water Board's mission and the Lahontan region, and the purpose of the Bacteria Water Quality Objectives Evaluation Project. Following this discussion, we will look at what water quality objectives are and why they are needed, followed by a closer look at the 2 bacteria objectives which are currently in effect in the Lahontan region. After this, I will present some of the potential ways that this project might remedy some of the issues we discussed today. This section begins around the 30-minute mark. I will then finish the presentation with the project timeline for the remainder of 2020 and beyond. Now, as you know, this presentation is pre-recorded, so you can view it at your leisure. But I want to stress the Water Board really wants to hear from you. What are your concerns if you have any? Do you have any questions? Do you have any general comments? And to facilitate this, we will be convening a live webinar meeting and telephone-based meeting on Wednesday, August 5th at 6 p.m. For whatever reason, if those times or the venue does not work for you, please do not hesitate to call or email me directly. I will be happy to take your questions and listen to your comments. The contact information, both my personal email address and the centralized project email address, is available on this slide and will also be available on the final slide of this presentation. So, what are the goals of today's presentation? Well, first is to share information with you about the project. What is it? Why is it happening? What are some of the things you might expect to result at the end of this process? Water Board staff want to engage those with interest in this project in the region because your opinion is valuable and the insights you have about how surface water is used in the region matter. The information in this presentation is also intended to foster an informed discussion when we get together during the first week of August 2020 for a webinar and telephone-based meeting about this project. Staff want to know how bacteria objectives might affect you or your business, or the water bodies and areas of the region that you care about. Do you have concerns that you think we should know about? We are very interested in gathering your thoughts, and by aggregating as much information as possible at this stage, the project will be better informed and better able to produce water quality objectives which accurately reflect the needs of Lahontan region inhabitants and the beneficial uses of water in Eastern California. Before we dive into technical details, I want to share some of the information Water Board staff gathered through the January and May surveys circulated earlier this year. The intent of the January survey was to gauge interest in the project, to determine where in the region that interest was, and to gain some cursory information about the level of understanding regarding bacteria water quality. The May survey was narrower in focus. We wanted to know how we should communicate with you about this project given the COVID-19 emergency. It is important for the success of this project that we collaborate with interested folks in the Lahontan region, and the purpose of the May survey was to determine how best to do so given the restrictions placed on us by the statewide shelter-in-place orders. What we heard from you is that holding meetings over the web and via telephone would be acceptable as an interim measure. Staff intend to meet folks face-to-face regarding this project when it is safe to do so, and staff are also aware that there are folks out there for which internet access is a challenge. If you know of someone or a group who does not have access to the internet, please forward their contact information to me and I will contact them directly. What the surveys highlighted to Water Board staff is that there is a lot of interest in the region about this project. There were approximately 120 responses from throughout the region over both surveys. These responses were evenly spread between the north, central, and southern portions of the region, and many different groups were represented in the answers. Folks with interests in agriculture and grazing, drinking water providers, representatives from a variety of government agencies, private individuals, those interested in recreation and environmental protection. Respondents were split between wanting to see regulations relaxed and wanting to see tighter restrictions for bacteria pollution. I think that there is a happy medium to be found here. Water Board staff want to craft bacteria regulations for the region which protect human health, but which also protect the high-quality waters in the region from degradation by bacteria and are reflective of the many diverse beneficial uses of water that occur in Lahontan region surface waters. We also want to provide regulatory certainty, both for those in the regulated community and for Water Board permit writing processes. So let's begin with the Water Board's mission. The primary responsibility for protection of water quality in California rests with the State Water Resources Control Board and the 9 regional water quality control boards, of which the Lahontan region is one. The Water Board mission is to preserve, enhance, and restore the quality of California's water resources for the benefit of present and future generations, and generally, we accomplish this mission through regulating discharge of waste through permits. The State Water Board sets statewide policy for the implementation of state and federal laws and regulations. The State Board is responsible for regulating water rights, for example. The regional boards, of which Lahontan is one, adopt and implement water quality control plans, also known as basin plans, which recognize regional differences in natural water quality, actual and potential beneficial uses, and water quality problems associated with human activities. Basin plans are specific to a Water Board region. These documents govern how the regional board goes about its business. Basin plans contain water quality objectives, which sets limits or allowable levels of water quality constituents. I will touch more on objectives in a minute. And basin plans also designate beneficial uses of water. A beneficial use is a legal term to describe how a person might use a surface water to benefit them. It could be for recreation, it could be for drinking, it could be for agriculture. All beneficial uses of water that are in place in the Lahontan region can be found in the Basin Plan, which, as I just alluded to, is the governing document for water quality regulation in the Lahontan region. There are 9 regional water boards in California. The Lahontan region is also known as Region 6, and this region covers the majority of eastern California from the Modoc Plateau at the Oregon border in the north to the Mojave Desert in the south. The Lahontan region is the second largest region after the Central Valley region, and it encompasses 33,000 square miles, or about a quarter of the state. The region is 570 miles long, and we are lucky to have more than 700 lakes and more than 3,000 miles of stream. The Lahontan region is topographically diverse. We have the highest point in the lower 48 states, Mount Whitney, at 14,500 feet, and the lowest point in the US, Death Valley, at 282 feet below sea level. We also have a ton of awe-inspiring open spaces and other areas which really are quite unique ecosystems in California. As many of you know, there are 2 bacteria water quality objectives in effect in the region. One of these objectives has been in place throughout the Lahontan region since the early 1990s, and that is the fecal coliform objective found in the Lahontan region Basin Plan. The other objective is fairly new in California, and that is the E. coli objective, which was adopted in 2018 by the State Water Resources Control Board. The fecal coliform objective is highly protective and is a reflection of the high quality surface waters and low bacteria levels found in many streams and lakes in the Lahontan region. The recently adopted E. coli objective is protective of the recreational beneficial use and reflects an acceptable risk to human health in the event there is contact with the surface water contaminated in some way by fecal bacteria. So with this in mind, and because of the 2018 adoption of the E. coli bacteria objective by the State Water Board, the Lahontan Water Board has made the evaluation of the fecal coliform bacteria objective of the region's Basin Plan a top priority. And this priority brings us here today. As many of you know, the plan was to hold a series of in-person workshops in March 2020. Unfortunately, because of the COVID-19 public health emergency before us, we cannot safely meet face-to-face. However, staff are still very interested to engage with folks around the region. We want this webinar to provide information to you about the project and about some of the ideas we have had about ways to improve our regulations. So let's talk about water quality objectives. Well, as described in the Porter-Cologne Act, the law which governs water quality regulation in California, a water quality objective is a limit or level of a water quality constituent or characteristic which is established for the reasonable protection of beneficial uses of water or the prevention of a nuisance within a specific area. Water quality objectives are used as thresholds to determine if that water is safe for people and the environment, and these thresholds are used to determine if beneficial uses assigned to a water body are being supported. For example, the E. coli bacteria water quality objective sets a level of bacteria pollution above which there is a high risk that people might get sick if they contact that water. E. coli data compared to this objective might be used to determine that the water contact recreation beneficial use is not supported. So recreation in and on the water is captured or protected by the water contact recreation beneficial use. And this use covers activities such as swimming, kayaking, wading, amongst others. More broadly speaking, many different water quality objectives apply to California waters, and these objectives are tools to identify areas where different uses of water are either supported or not. Water quality objectives also provide useful thresholds to track how water quality is changing over time. In some cases, water quality objectives are benchmarks of good water quality, such as the fecal coliform objective of the Lahontan Basin Plan, and in other cases, objectives indicate a level beyond which water becomes dangerous to humans and other organisms, which is one way of thinking about the E. coli water quality objective. Let's take a minute to talk specifically about the purpose of bacteria water quality objectives. Measuring bacteria in surface waters is not a new concept. Scientists have been monitoring the bacterial quality of waters for public health purposes since the late 19th century. The first bacteria water quality objective started to appear in the early 20th century, and they were mainly applied to drinking water sources. As the 20th century continued, scientists began to understand the importance of monitoring the bacterial quality of recreational waters because they saw people getting sick after bathing at beaches, in lakes, and in rivers and creeks contaminated with sewage. Bacteria objectives have evolved to be important thresholds to protect human health. We don't want anyone who has contact with the surface water to get sick because they were exposed to pathogens or viruses which originated from feces or sewage. Human and animal waste carry a whole slew of nasty critters that can make you very sick. Gastrointestinal illness, skin rashes and other irritations, respiratory problems, and in some rare cases there can be complications which lead to death. In addition to protecting people, bacteria objectives are also useful when determining where there are pollution issues that are degrading our surface water resources. By collecting bacteria data and comparing those data to a water quality objective, environmental managers can determine if there are water quality issues and whether resources should be focused to protect water quality. Similarly, bacteria objectives are a useful benchmark to help track changes in a water body over time. Have there been noticeable changes which perhaps warrant further investigation? Has there been a change in the way land is used that might have resulted in instances of higher bacteria levels in a water body? Let's take a minute to define something that may help your understanding of one of the issues pertaining to this project, and that is high quality waters and what a high quality water is. There will be some emphasis on high quality a little later in this presentation, but what does it mean? Well, high quality surface waters can be described as waters where water quality is consistently better than required to support beneficial uses. Examples might include swimming in Lake Tahoe or fishing in the West Forker River. These waters require a higher level of water quality protection to ensure that high quality water and the quality of the beneficial uses associated with that water continue over time. One way to think about how a high quality surface water might enhance a specific beneficial use is to think about swimming in Lake Tahoe. The exceptionally clean water of Lake Tahoe will likely enhance your swimming experience when compared to swimming in a muddy lake, for example. So this is one way in which a high quality surface water might enhance a beneficial use. In my Lake Tahoe example, the water contact recreation use is enhanced by the clean, clear, and likely a little cold water of Lake Tahoe. And while we are on the subject of high quality waters, I should mention that there are two outstanding national resource waters, or ONRWs, in the Lahontan region, the only two in the state of California, in fact, and they are Lake Tahoe and Mono Lake, which is pictured here. By definition, an outstanding national resource water is a high quality water which is valuable for recreational, ecological, or cultural purposes, and generally, no water quality degradation of any kind is permitted. The bacteria project likely will not change the level of bacteria protections assigned to Lake Tahoe, but the project might alter the type of bacteria objective that is applied to Mono Lake. Mono Lake is a saline water, and there is scientific guidance on fecal bacteria indicators for saline waters. And I should mention that any and all proposed changes to these protections would be subject to review by the public and by the Water Board. Let's take a look at sampling surface waters for bacteria. In terms of human health protection, we are interested in knowing whether there are harmful pathogens or viruses in a surface water. We don't want to be exposed to these critters, but isolating pathogens and viruses in a water body is very difficult. These organisms are often not equally distributed in the body of water, meaning that you may or may not be lucky to scoop them up in your water sample. And these organisms are very expensive and time-consuming to test for in a lab. You need specialist equipment and expert training, all of which cost time and money. Instead, scientists and regulators use indicator bacteria to tell if harmful organisms might be in a water sample. Indicator bacteria, such as fecal coliform or E. coli, are by and large benign, meaning they don't cause sicknesses. Not only are indicator bacteria generally benign, but they are also shed in great numbers in fecal wastes. And because they are shed in great numbers, they are easier to detect in a surface water when compared to pathogens and viruses that I was speaking to a few moments ago. Indicator bacteria are also very easy to test for in a lab. The tests are cheap, they are easily repeatable, and they are also fairly quick to perform. It is important to note that bacteria water quality objectives use indicator bacteria to tell the likelihood that the nasty stuff that we are trying to avoid contact with is in the surface water or not. When we collect fecal coliform or E. coli bacteria samples and those test results come back at high concentrations, it means that there is a likelihood that there are also nasty pathogens and viruses in that surface water as well, not that the particular concentrations of fecal coliform or E. coli will necessarily cause us harm. Now, surface waters move all the time, and any bacteria in that surface water moves with it. When it comes down to accurately estimating the likely amount of fecal bacteria in a surface water, you need to take many samples spaced out over time. By sampling at regular intervals, for example, every week, the better your understanding of bacteria water quality will be. And this brings me to the final point on this slide. The Lahontan region covers a lot of land area, and often travel times and staff resources make regular sampling in many of our regional surface waters challenging. The Water Board does have the facilities to process bacteria samples at our in-house lab in South Lake Tahoe, and has committed significant resources in the last decade to creating a robust data set for bacteria for many of the region's surface waters. This data set provides valuable information for the Bacteria Objectives Evaluation Project. As we know, in the Lahontan region, there are two bacteria objectives in effect. But what are the differences between them? Fecal coliform and E. coli are part of the same bacteria family, the coliform group. Coliforms exist throughout nature and are found in many environments. Fecal coliform are a group of coliforms which are linked to the intestines of warm-blooded animals. In the second half of the 20th century, microbiologists began to realize that there was yet another smaller group of coliforms which were even more indicative of the presence of fecal material, and that group is known as E. coli. E. coli are a better indicator of the presence of harmful pathogens and viruses because they are more closely linked to fecal matter when compared to fecal coliform. Let's take a moment to talk about the two objectives in terms of human health and the risk of getting sick. The fecal coliform objective of the Lahontan Basin Plan allows for less than 1 chance in 1,000 that you might get sick from contact with the surface water where bacteria is measured at the objective threshold. The statewide E. coli objective allows for 32 chances in 1,000 if you contact water at the allowable threshold for this objective. As you can tell, the risk level is quite a bit higher with the E. coli objective than for the fecal coliform objective. If we think for a second in terms of environmental protection, the fecal coliform objective is about 6 times more protective when compared to the E. coli objective. Basically, about 6 times less fecal waste is permitted by the Lahontan Basin Plan compared with the statewide objective. And the fecal coliform objective really reflects expected water quality conditions in the region, whereas the E. coli objective was developed specifically to protect human health during water contact recreation activities such as swimming. Let's take a closer look at each objective. The fecal coliform objective found in the Lahontan Basin Plan applies throughout the Lahontan region and is written to protect all beneficial uses. The objective was adopted into the Basin Plan for all waters in the 1994-1995 Basin Plan revise, and prior to this objective was applied to 10 major watersheds in the region, such as Tahoe, the Carson Rivers, and the Walker Rivers. The objective was extended to apply throughout the region in recognition of the many high-quality waters that exist. The objective is made up of 2 parts, meaning that there are 2 ways of determining if water is dirty. The objective provides an allowed concentration of bacteria measured as an average over a month, or measured as a single data point against a higher concentration value. The monthly value, which is the more often used value, is set at 20 colony-forming units of fecal coliform. 20 colonies of fecal coliform is very achievable when you're in the High Sierra. It becomes less achievable as one moves downstream to the valleys and lower elevation parts of Eastern California, where more people and animals live and there is a higher rate of development. Now let's take a look at the new E. coli objective adopted by the State Board in August of 2018. This objective is specifically written to protect the recreation of beneficial use. The objective is derived from the federal US EPA criteria for bacteria, which was published in 1986 and which was republished in 2012. This E. coli objective is also in 2 parts. Again, this objective provides an allowed concentration of bacteria in a surface water measured as an average over a 6-week period, or measured as a single data point against a higher concentration value. The single data point value, which is set at 320 colony-forming units, is really useful if you only have limited data, or if you are trying to determine if a surface water is safe on the day the sample was collected. For longer-term monitoring, and the element I want to focus our discussion on today, is the average allowable number of E. coli colonies in a surface water over a 6-week period, which is set at 100 colony-forming units per 100 milliliters of sample water. So cast your mind back to the previous slide where fecal coliform over a month is 20 colony-forming units, and now compare that to E. coli over 6 weeks, which is 100 colony-forming units. And it is easy to see that there is a gap in the numeric thresholds. Now we know a little bit about water quality objectives in general, about the 2 bacteria objectives in effect in the Lahontan region, and about some of the differences and similarities between them. So what are the issues that we are dealing with in this project? As we saw on a previous slide, there are 2 different thresholds of water quality protection, which is problematic for some of the processes that the Water Board is legally required to engage in, and creates an unnecessary challenge for folks in the regulated community to comply with. Another issue with the current situation pertains to fecal coliform. As I mentioned a few slides ago, scientists have determined that E. coli is better associated with the presence of pathogens and viruses, and fecal coliform is a little outdated in terms of scientific development and is really not the best indicator of the presence of harmful pollution. So everything I have explained so far in this presentation is really the reason for the bacteria evaluation project. We have two objectives. They offer two different levels of protection, and this is causing issues for Eastern California water quality. So the next several slides will introduce a few of the potential ways the project could deal with the issues I have described. Please note, none of these options that I will present are final. No single one has been decided upon, and really, I am presenting them to you today to give you a flavor of the potential ways we could move forward with this project. So, if you see one option you absolutely love or really dislike, you will have the chance to give us that feedback when we meet in a few weeks' time on August 5th. One option is to remove the fecal coliform objective and rely entirely on the statewide E. coli objective. This would solve a lot of the issues I have described previously, such as streamlining objectives and reflecting scientific understanding regarding indicators, but it would also leave a variety of high-quality waters in the region open to significant bacteria pollution. This is because the E. coli objective allows for much more degradation before beneficial uses are identified as impaired, and this is a situation that could significantly reduce water quality in the region over time. Building on the previous slide, another possible project option would be to remove the fecal coliform objective and use the E. coli objective for human health protection, and also to develop a numeric guideline for certain high-quality waters in the Lahontan region, such as high alpine streams and lakes. The numeric guideline would be just that, a guide to use to recognize surface waters that are valuable for recreational, ecological, or cultural purposes. This guideline would not be used to determine if a surface water was impaired for 303D purposes, or be used to tell folks that an action that they may be taking is illegal. The guideline would be a tool to recognize high-quality waters, to detect bacteria changes in those waters over time, and hopefully to preserve our water resources here in the Lahontan region for us and for future generations. Another possible approach for the project is to use the E. coli objective to protect human health, and then to translate the existing fecal coliform objective to use E. coli as the indicator bacteria. This would result in a basin plan equivalent objective of approximately 18 E. coli colony forming units per 100 milliliters of sample water. This objective would then be removed from certain surface waters where the E. coli REC1 objective alone will ensure the reasonable protection of beneficial uses and the prevention of nuisance. Examples of a situation such as this might be for surface waters in the Bridgeport Valley, where water has been beneficially used for agricultural purposes since before California gained statehood. Yet another approach for this project involves, again, relying on the REC1 E. coli objective to protect human health, and then developing a new beneficial use and E. coli-based water quality objective analogous to the current fecal coliform objective in the basin plan, with the goal of protecting high-quality waters in the region. The new beneficial use and objective would be designated to surface waters where low bacteria levels are needed to protect that new beneficial use. So I know those four possibilities were a lot to take in and may in fact be confusing, as much of this project might be. Please, let me reiterate, reach out to me with your questions should you have any. This presentation is the beginning of a conversation with you, not just me talking at you. The Water Board and Water Board staff want to hear your thoughts on other ways to move forward. Maybe you have a preference on an option I just listed. Maybe you have a combination of preferences, or perhaps you have a whole new option that wasn't presented here. I really encourage you to submit questions you might have for our Q&A session in a few weeks' time, and to get in touch with me by phone or by email. So, with all the information I have presented today in mind, what is the next stage for the evaluation project? Well, my colleagues and I have been and will continue to evaluate the region-wide bacteria datasets, which consist both of E. coli and of fecal coliform. We have also been reviewing other pertinent information, such as the state of the science regarding fecal indicator bacteria, laboratory methods that might be employed in the future, and also information on beneficial uses and where these beneficial uses occur in the region. And today's webinar serves a purpose on the timeline too. This is the first opportunity in a series of opportunities for us at the Water Board to engage with you, and for you to engage with us on this topic as well. And looking to the future, the plan is to spend the rest of this summer developing a report of likely strategies for this planning project. The idea is to develop several different approaches, including the ones I introduced in this presentation today, informed by science and our interactions with interested parties in the region. We will then present these approaches to the Lahontan Water Board at the November board meeting in Barstow. At the full board meeting, the Water Board may provide input and direction to staff on which strategies to develop further for the board's consideration at a later date. Once staff have direction from the board, the official SWRCB process will begin. For those who maybe don't know what SWRCB is, SWRCB stands for the California Environmental Quality Act, and any action that is taken that might affect our environment is subject to this act and must follow the rules and guidelines laid out by it. I think it is important to note at this stage that any direction we receive from the Water Board about this project is subject to change as we move through the SWRCB process and through the public participation process as well. Any significant feedback from the public or from our agency partners could bring us back to the Water Board with a change in direction. So, once staff get direction from the board in November, we will begin the SWRCB process, the beginning of which will be a series of public meetings where interested parties can provide comments on our strategy and help the Water Board craft regulations that are appropriate for the region. All of this will likely occur in 2021 and will continue into 2022. And looking a bit farther into the future, and some of this is in flux because of the steps that come before it, I would expect to update the Lahontan Basin Plan with a bacteria objective sometime in 2022. I should caveat all of this by saying that there is a lot of ground to cover before we get to that point, so don't be surprised if this timeline shifts before we get to the end of the process. I should also mention that the timeline depicted on these slides is not exhaustive, and it is very likely that we will have meetings with interested parties that are not specifically listed here on these slides. And let me finish with some next steps after today's webinar. I encourage you to submit questions or comments you might have via email to me ahead of a live question and answer session on August 6th. You can send email either directly to my work email address or to the central project email address, both of which are listed on this slide. Questions will be answered live during this meeting, which will be accessible via the web or via telephone. And this session will also be recorded and posted on the website for those who cannot make the live meeting. Also, for those of you that aren't, please make sure you navigate to the email subscription page on the Water Board website and subscribe to the Basin Planning region-wide list, as this is the best way to receive updates about the project. And with that, thank you very much for listening. My contact information is on this slide. It is also available on the website. Again, my name is Ed Hancock, and thank you again for tuning in. I really look forward to working with you on this project soon. As I said, if you have questions, comments, concerns, please do not hesitate to get in touch with me.